Let's dive into this a little bit more, and then I'm going to get into maybe a shocking statement here, but like, and again, I've always been one. Every time someone says, "Oh, it's the '90s all over again," I'm like, no, it's not, because you have a lot of different things happening that aren't the '90s. I mean, the publishers, the industry has learned from the '90s, but I do feel, and it was a little tongue in cheek, but I shared Whatnot's little post of the seller where he was like, "Oh man, the heartbeats are getting." Which goes to show that, I mean, they're buying it. I mean, they're selling the dopamine rush so hardcore.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I was like, greatest marketing since the 90s. Get that bag, and I'm not mad. I am being a little tongue-in-cheek because I'm like, but I'm not being tongue-in-cheek to Whatnot. I'm not being tongue-in-cheek to Marvel for the sellers. I'm being tongue-in-cheek because it's like, are people really spending this much money? Like, come on, but go ahead. But I am a little worried because in this down market, the only thing left is the dopamine fix, is the emotion.
Yeah, that's true.
And Whatnot knows, Marvel, DC, the publishers know, the sellers know, everybody knows this is how we get our money. And where does that leave? This is why I say 90s on steroids, because what was going on in the 90s crippled comic books so much that Marvel was going to go bankrupt. Like, I mean, and it took these characters away from the comic books, and we had to start, getting back into movies to at least get my generation then back into the comic books at a later time to say, okay, this stuff is still kind of cool. Like, I am worried that because that's all that's there, what does that really truly mean for the hobby? Like, and let's go outside of just FOMO buys or live action spec or these crazy gimmicks, because that's what call them. I mean, everything that's marketed is a gimmick. These are amazing gimmicks. I'm not using gimmick as a bad word, but it's a gimmick because they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to play into your emotions. But let's look at YouTube and the drama that sells in the comic book community. Look at social media. When it comes to politics, it's like when we talk about politics, there's nothing, say one person likes one candidate. You never hear them talking about what they like about that candidate. They're busy talking crap about the other candidate. So it's like everything is based on this dopamine rush of FOMO, drama, whatever it is. And there's no substance. Is the comic book collecting community burnt out on simple comic collecting? So they're resorting to that quick fix. And believe me, I know how drugs work. Are we going to get dope fiend out? Are we just going to get so burnt out on the dope to where it's either just going to kill us or just run us down?
I mean, let's be fair. I think that this is a problem for every industry because the more media that comes out, yes, which is every day, the more YouTube channels that are made, the more movies that are made, the more comics that are made, blah, blah, blah. Everyone is competing for everyone's attention, So you're Marvel and DC, you're not just competing against each other. You're competing against like the Instagram reel of like the guy who like gets run over by a car, so you have to cut through the noise. And I think these companies know that, and they have to market to like the whales, or they have to do the gimmick that's really going to break through, because like selling a story is hard. Like selling hey, this is really like written well, Batman's newest adventure. Like it's so hard for that to be how you get people into a comic book store, as opposed to like a little bit of like, hey, here's this rare chance you got your lotto ticket here, and that's just what works. So I'm sympathetic to them in that regard of like having to like do these gimmicks to cut through the noise. But yeah, I think that I don't think that the comic stories really matter all that much anymore, to be honest. A lot of people will talk about like, oh, if Marvel and DC had better writing, that would fix all of comic books problems. I'm like 100% no. Like, because there is good writing. There's a lot of bad writing.
Yep.
A ton of bad writing. But there is really good writing too, and that's not enough. And let's be honest. And forgive me, guys, if you're somebody who reads your floppies, I'm sorry. But the vast majority of the readers, comic readers, are reading trades or digital.
Yep.
The vast majority.
Yep.
Shout out to you. If you're the guy who reads your floppies, like you're an exception. But most people who buy floppies are buying it for the collecting, speculating value thing, So even with these mystery packs and stuff, which is like, again, this kind of brings it back to that topic, but we'll circle back here. Is they're making these things, and there's nothing wrong with it, but we know what it is. Like it's catering to like the speculator market, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, this is the last group of people that you can sell to, the variant cover people and the 1 in 100 people and the collectors, in that way. And I don't know, it's really hard too, because I in knowing my audience, which again, you're probably similar too, like I think, and probably the people in the chat here, most of us, when we talk about comics and we collect and we do videos, most of us are more like in the vintage side. That's more what we're interested in. Like I still read some modern stuff and I'll occasionally talk about X-Men 97 news packs and things like that. But the vast majority, I know the people who watch my videos really only collect back issues. And I don't know if there's like anything that Marvel or DC can do to get them to read a new comic book. Like even if it was good, like I just don't think that they're that interested. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that was your original question, but that was kind of where I was.
No, yeah. I mean, thinking. That's good. And it really points us to the fact that like, I really think there's, and I don't want to get too much into this because this is sidebarring, but, and I think I talked about this recently about like the floppy without variants. I've never been a big fan of variants. I love art, but I've never been a fan of paying a premium just because the cover is different.
Yeah, same.
Variants are the reason, in my humble opinion, why floppy comic books still exist. You can even look at sales on Comic-Con, like month after month. Variants have been the majority of the direct market sales, and if we collect variants still to just collect them or to read them or to collect our favorite runs, thank a variant collector or a variant buyer, even if you hate them, because if not, we are leaning into taking comic books. And remember, a comic book is a book that uses images and words. It's not just this floppy thing. It's like Dog Man and all those things. Those are comic book readers in a sense, because they're taking the same formula. I mean, we could go completely separate and have one industry of floppies where it's just FOMO hype, variants, foils, pack breaks, and then we have the Marvel and DC readers that every news story is produced in collections, in trades, in graphic novels, and straying away from the floppy because the floppy is so outdated for so many reasons. But that, again, that's a whole other story. But I do hear you, and I agree with what you said. And I do think that this FOMO, the drama, I think this emotion that we're holding on to is a bigger cultural issue. But we'll leave it at that right now. But let's turn it around now to this idea of where we're at and how social media influencers, in my humble opinion. Before we do, can I just say one more thing about variants really quick? Yes. I got to shout out variant. Listen. I'll eye roll with you guys. I definitely get the biggest like, here we go, type of mentality when I see certain variants. And by the way, I at some point have to make this video. I don't know if you guys caught this one, but there's like a New York Comic-Con variant coming up of the Venom 3 first null, but now it's a foil. I saw someone make it. I'm just kind of like, all right, okay, and that's sort of my feeling. But with variants, like you said, it's important because there are a lot of positives that come out of it. And I think the best version of variants are when you do have like a really cool artist who comes in and can do their own, like their style on something that is in service to that story. That's what variants were supposed to be, is like, here's kind of like this other artist's interpretation. So
they are good things. And yes, modern comic books and new variants and stuff, it's really important that they're successful, you know. And I know there's a lot of again, love everyone, you know, who watches the videos and stuff, but there's definitely a lot of the people who are like more vintage collectors, and they'll say like, oh, you know, don't buy all these stupid variants, buy like old comic books, you know, like a real comic book. And I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, if new comics are not selling, all our comics are going to zero, because like you have to get new people in, and they're not going to start collecting Golden Age.
Absolutely.
Like they have to start with modern comic books. Anyways, sorry.